No, the title is not clickbait. In response to my immeasurable displeasure while streaming Silent Hill F, a friend of mine piped up in Twitch chat and said,
"If this was an independent game, it wouldn't feel or look half bad. But because it is Silent Hill, it's supposed to have a quality and legacy that is not upholding."
which really got me thinking, what even is the legacy of Silent Hill? It's one of the most revered video game franchises of all time, but it's more than that. We have films, graphic novels, pachinko machines, skateboards, and whatever the fuck Silent Hill Ascension was supposed to be. As I'm writing this script, there are nearly 30 entries in total across the franchise, and the truth is, most of them are terrible. A couple of great games, one industry-defining title, a solid if underwhelming send-off to the original canon, and one unfortunately ill-fated teaser were the best this series could conjure. But the incredibly underwhelming response to the series overall eventually led Konami to outsource the franchise. After the disbanding of Team Silent, Konami commissioned 5 more games, 7-ish graphic novels, and 2 of the worst video game adaptations ever put to film, with the first film not just being a bad adaptation, but one of the blandest films I've ever seen in my life. Seriously, how do you make something so unremittingly boring from one of the scariest things ever made by humans? Which brings us to Konami's latest attempt at artistic necrophilia. With one very overrated exception, this new era of Silent Hill is proving to be just as bad, if not worse, than anything we previously thought possible. Here, let me try to put this into a format that a lot of you younger viewers might understand.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Hey, that's pretty good.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit. 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 It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
I'm so fucking bored!
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
There are bugs under my skin.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit. 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 It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
And for a franchise this dense, if I only like this much of it, I'd hardly call myself a Silent Hill fan.
This video is sponsored by Konami.
Silent Hill F is not just a return to form, it's a remarkable evolution.
F in SHF stands for fucking great.
I do think it's like an incredible story.
And I just found it just like extremely powerful and just an incredible story.
The storytelling, atmosphere, and audio-visual design are near flawless.
With its brilliant writing, well-designed and strategic gameplay,
Silent Hill F is a welcome return for the series.
Silent Hill F firmly establishes itself as a phenomenal work of psychological horror, and among the best entries in the Silent Hill series.
This game, in my opinion, has a 10 out of 10 masterpiece of a story.
In its boldness to not fit in with what came before, it actually runs perfectly in line with its narrative theming in a game about fighting to be yourself.
It's an unforgettable horror experience and easily one of the strongest entries in the franchise.
Ryukishi 07 killed it, and I really want to go and play more of his games now because I am floored by how good this story is.
But that title does not convey just how unbelievably good Silent Hill F is.
A mastercraft in psychological horror.
This is an instant classic.
A work of narrative brilliance.
At least in the top 3 stories in Silent Hill, if not number 1.
Silent Hill F does a great job of keeping the DNA of the series intact, while also proving it can evolve in bold new ways.
Among AAA titles, there are few games that dare broach the same topics that developer Neobards Entertainment does in this title, and far fewer that handle them with even close to the same amount of grace, nuance, and conviction.
This is an incredible shot in the arm for the Silent Hill franchise and the survival horror genre as a whole.
That's why I think Silent Hill F is the bravest Silent Hill game yet.
That's why we are giving Silent Hill F a 96 out of 100.
And a new benchmark for the Silent Hill series.
I do think the story is a stroke of genius.
Not a chance in the deepest bowels of Japanese hell. Silent Hill F begins with a series of trigger warnings to let you know that you are indeed playing a real game for real gamers, but unfortunately the list is incomplete and even a bit misleading. Just the first of many examples of neobards and Konami seemingly having no idea what the fuck they were even doing with this game. Here, let me help you guys out with this one.
This game contains depictions of gender discrimination, child abuse, bullying, drug-induced hallucinations, torture, graphic violence, themes of manipulation, coercion, Stockholm Syndrome, loss of autonomy, childbirth, grooming, implications of pedophilia, and non-consensual sex.
Where's my fucking check, Konami? Also, I think that it is very important to acknowledge that most of, if not all of the torture and graphic violence is enacted on children. I'm just saying, we've seen games banned for less, so I feel like it's important to make that distinction. Silent Hill F is a game that pushes boundaries, which I normally approve of. We need artists willing to take risks so we can feel out where some of those boundaries even are. But there has to be a point to it. And Silent Hill F serves no other purpose than to shock you for the sake of shock value and literally occupy space and time until the next Silent Hill monstrosity stomps into town and starts throwing buses around. And I already know what some of you are going to say, which is why you should watch the entire video before you comment. You won't, but you really should. Let's cover the story so we can get any and all spoilers out of the way and provide context for the rest of the discussion. And just a quick reminder, this is our amended trigger warning. Set in the fictional Japanese town of Ebisugaoka during the 1960s, Silent Hill F follows a young girl named Hinako as she fights to survive against a malevolent force that threatens the lives of her and her friends. Along the way, she uncovers the town's dark secrets and is forced in the worst ways imaginable through a series of rituals by the town's nearly forgotten god of prosperity after whom the town was named. On the surface, one might mistake Silent Hill F as a game that shows up to the party a couple decades fashionably late, but what ensues is an absolute mockery of everything that makes psychological horror, survival horror, and more specifically what made Silent Hill great in the first place. This game comes complete with all the worst elements from across the franchise without the handicap of Western sensibilities. You see, back in my day, we used to just outright believe Western developers didn't understand Silent Hill because of the obvious cultural and creative differences. But now we have a somewhat notable Japanese writer, an incredibly talented Japanese art designer, along with Taiwanese developers, yet somehow Ryukishio 7, Kara, and Neobards have all stumbled into the exact same fucking mess that every single developer did following the disbanding of Team Silent. And this is not Team Silent fanboyism, by the way. I have plenty of issues with them, these three in particular. But the chemistry of the original creators all the way through to the remaining members who worked on Silent Hill 4 all clearly understood their creation in a way no one else ever would. The oppressive atmosphere, tone, and attention to detail remain unmatched to this day. I am not going to try to argue with anyone if you like those later games. I have a soft spot for Homecoming. It's still an absolute piece of shit, but there are things about it that I appreciate. Doesn't make it good, just like there are things about Silent Hill F that I straight up like. Doesn't mean the game is good, and it doesn't mean the story isn't an absolute farce. Speaking of which, Hinako is a child of an abusive drunken father and passive complicit mother. She finds escape in a make-believe fantasy called Space Wars that she shares with childhood friend Shu. They seem to be as platonic as it gets, with Hinako even being ridiculed by the other kids for being a tomboy, but regardless, there is very obvious romantic tension between the two of them. Complicating this relationship is third wheel Rinko, who has a very unhealthy infatuation with Shu, thinks herself above everyone around her, and just straight up hates Hinako's guts. Sakuko is the oh, she's dead. Once the aforementioned malevolent force descends upon the town, the three remaining friends do whatever it takes to survive, and all the other people in the town seemingly vanish. To make matters worse, Hinako begins experiencing nightmares, where she is transported to a mysterious realm referred to as the Dark Shrine, where she is courted by the current representative of the town's ancient fox god. He guides her along a path that involves cutting ties with her mortal life by brutally torturing and killing her friends, and disfiguring her own body as part of the ritual. After killing not just her friends, but her parents as well, and going toe-to-toe with her inner self, the game comes to a close with Hinako escaping the Dark Shrine, and then credits.
But wait! There's more!
Yeah, so it turns out most of this never actually happened. The real story of Silent Hill F is as follows. Hinako's father was an aspiring chef who went into severe debt while trying to pursue his career. In an effort to pay off the debt, he sold Hinako into an arranged marriage. Desperate to cope, Hinako began abusing medication derived from local flowers said to have hallucinogenic properties, which eventually led to a psychotic break, pushing her to homicide at her own forced wedding. With the events of the game being the nightmare she conjures to cope with the reality of everything she's had to endure, complete with her conflicting inner desires manifesting as a conflict between her inner child and her inner adult. Translation: Being groomed by a furry in the spirit realm is preferable to being literally sold into an arranged marriage and losing your childhood and your freedom, and holy shit, I can't believe they finally did it. The age-old meme of, was I killing monsters or people, or was I the monster the whole time, has finally been made a reality. The gods of Western Silent Hill can finally rest. No more speculation, they finally just did the meme. Hinako is straight up murdering people for real. I figured that was the way they were going to go, considering they literally spoiled it in the fucking trailers, but I honestly didn't believe anyone on this godforsaken heap was stupid enough to think it would work. But they are, and it doesn't. And the tragedy is, the themes present in Silent Hill F are incredibly endearing, and there is just so much to explore. You know, a young girl coming of age, the fears and anxieties therein, the threat of violence against women, the underlying horrors of femininity, pregnancy, motherhood, societal expectations, bodily autonomy. If only Silent Hill actually had the balls to explore any of this in a meaningful way, then we wouldn't have to play the child-torturing, furry, groomer yandere simulator. And all of that was just from the first playthrough. And if I said that's where my journey with the game ended, I would have some absolute brainlets in the comments pushing up their glasses like, well, actually, you have to play the game no less than 4 times to get the full story, you know that, right? To which I would have originally said,
No, I don't think I will.
But then, after beating the game, I started watching other people's reviews, and I thought for a moment, surely I must be missing something. The online Silent Hill circle jerk has always been such a beacon of wisdom, insight, and knowledge. Surely New Game Plus holds the key to unlocking answers to an even deeper mystery. Right? Here is what New Game Plus actually does. It obfuscates the truth by throwing so much new information at you that the only way to make sense of anything going on in subsequent playthroughs is to discard the initial playthrough entirely, which means the longest and most tedious playthrough of this game, which would be the only playthrough for many, is also the one that matters the least. Silent Hill F proves with its true ending just how pointless the game is and how fucking dumb Konami actually thinks you are. The first playthrough shows, not implies, literally confirms that everything you see is a result of the inner turmoil of the protagonist. The only reality we get to witness in the first run is the aftermath of the wedding, where Hinako finally says, fuck it, baby's gotta do what a baby's gotta do, and lets her family know what sound the steel pipe makes. In hindsight, this ends up being the most human, grounded, and relatable ending, and feels quite in line with the vision of Silent Hill in its totality. In some ways, it might even be the best ending, which is a pretty searing indictment of how fucked the others are, and we'll get to them shortly. But it is very important to recognize how useless certain plot points and pieces of information are throughout the game, because they serve no other function than to confuse and misdirect the player so that you aren't able to predict the very obvious outcome that was obvious even if you missed the fact that Konami spoiled it in the trailers. What we are dealing with here again is obfuscation, something by its very nature that is unclear and unintelligible for the sake of confusion. It's post-trauma all over again. Where once was depth is now obscurity. But here is the problem with this approach as it pertains to Silent Hill F. There is nothing in this game that is even remotely difficult to intuit from even a casual perspective. Even if the all-knowing journal didn't tell you exactly what to think and feel, which it does, the information detailed within and so much more is so quickly and easily discernible that the journal is rendered completely redundant. And there is no way to argue in favor of this fucking thing, by the way. The journal has a detrimental impact on the atmosphere as the game trips over itself constantly to ensure that you're checking it, and the sheer absurdity in the amount of actual information you're expected to take in across the game. Because it's not just the journal. You also have the insane, even for Silent Hill, amount of notes and documents across the game, which themselves often add information to the journal. Information that is distinct from the note itself, effectively doubling the impact that these notes have and artificially inflating the amount of time you spend reading in this game, which is absolutely criminal. The total number of documents and journal entries in Silent Hill F equals more than half of the entire rest of the series combined. I literally counted. Rounded to the nearest 10, here are the series totals. Silent Hill, 40. Konami's Team Silence, Silent Hill 2, 60. Silent Hill 3, 90. Silent Hill 4, The Room, 50. Silent Hill Origins, 50. Silent Hill Homecoming, 40. Silent Hill Shattered Memories, 20. Silent Hill Downpour, 60. Silent Hill Book of Memories, 10. Silent Hill The Short Message, 30. Konami's Bloober Team's Silent Hill 2, 70. Silent Hill F, 150 notes and 120 journal entries, bringing it to a total of 270 separate fucking documents, compared to the entire rest of the series combined at 520. You would have to play the first 5 fucking Silent Hill games to get to the amount of reading that you do in Silent Hill F alone. For the number crunchers among you, Silent Hill F comprises 34% of the total notes and documents found throughout the entire series. And that's just the amount of reading you do, which even in a good game can get kind of tedious. See Signalis and Chronos the New Dawn as perfect examples of this. But the content of most of the notes and journal entries you read is either useless information on a first playthrough, made obsolete by a second playthrough, a complete misdirect which equals pointless, or, as I said before, difficult to even care about because the journal is explicitly designed to derail gameplay constantly, even though everything it tells you you've already figured out on your own because the game is so overt. And I know people will be quick to excuse stuff like this. Oh, it's not the developers making you read it, it's Hinako. It's how she feels. It's what she thinks. Yeah, no, I get that. It's been obvious since the fucking trailers. Even if I was willing to entertain that notion further, the entire game, yes, even with the context of each additional ending, takes place not just from her perspective, again rendering the journal redundant, but most of the game takes place within the actual character. So the events of the game are already as close up and personal as you can possibly get. Everything is already from her perspective, so any interpretation we could make is drawn from something taking place within the character. So what the fuck is the point of the journal outside of obliterating the atmosphere every 15 minutes or helping confused white people keep track of which Japanese character is which?
Especially Japan with all these different names, like you play Fatal Frame and one character's name Miyu, one character's name Mayo, one character's name is Mayo, Miku, Midu. Like, I can't follow that. I cannot follow that. Doesn't matter if I have a gun to my head, I will not understand that story. But in this game, you have Hinako's journal and she writes pictures of every character, something that helps me learn. You see her draw a picture of whatever she's seen, and then you can look at that drawing and relate it to the topic or the monster or the character. And I find that so good. It was so good to understand the story. But going forward, I hope other games do that too.
Eat shit.
Okay, this is as good a place as any to provide some additional context. There are multiple representations of Hinako throughout the game and in each ending. The furry, pictured here, is the manifestation of her adult desires, or at least her acceptance of her new role as a furry's wife. And she has major beef with this version of Hinako, which represents her desire to make her own choices. This version being the one you play as for most of the game. For additional context, when covering the next 3 endings, it is important to note that unlike the first playthrough where the events of the game are meant to be metaphorical, in every other playthrough they are meant to be taken far more literally, meaning all of the groomer, furry, yandere metaphorical nonsense is actually happening now. Because one of the requirements for these endings is that you don't use any of the capsules throughout the playthrough, implying that Hinako is operating above the influence of the hallucinogenic medicine within. So, if she never took the pills, then she never went on a furry vision quest. Again, it's not just implied, it's a literal requirement to get these endings. Which means, in the subsequent New Game Plus playthrough, if you take the pills, you still get the ending from the first playthrough, even though New Game Plus adds a ton of additional information about the origins of furry senpai, and context is provided for the long-standing conflict between the various furry Japanese gods that all have beef over who runs Abisugaoka. What's even worse, and speaks to the very rigid nature of the game design and storytelling, is that even if you don't take any capsules on your first playthrough, you will still be locked into this specific ending, which is bad for a whole other reason. The developers are desperate to tell their story through the actual gameplay mechanics, which many of the best games do, and this game does get close a few times. However, using the capsules is an active choice for the player. Whether you know about their impact on the outcome of the story or not, the use of the capsules is one of the very few ways that the player, and more importantly, Hinako, exercise any kind of freedom of choice. But the game forces you into a critical state even if you avoid taking damage during the eye-rolling run from the fog monster section in the intro. Then the game tutorializes the healing mechanic with the capsules. Sure, you can choose to not take them, there are other healing items up to that point in the game, but on a first playthrough, most players are going to do what the game tells them to do in the tutorial. It's just more evidence that these developers didn't quite understand the message they were sending through the story or the gameplay mechanics. In Ending 2, we see furry Hinako consume what I'm pretty sure is supposed to be a Glophodus from Silent Hill 1 and 3, because who doesn't love a little fan service?
I clapped when I saw it!
This reveals that she had been possessed by some supernatural force the entire time. Once destroyed, her adult self takes full control, meaning she has submitted to furry senpai completely and given up her childish dreams of having free will or whatever. This is reinforced by the fact that the final boss of this ending is literally Shu, her childhood partner, and the only thing that could have gotten in the way of the furry union. Sure, it's framed as Shu being possessed by whichever Japanese furry spirit from the never-ending pantheon of Japanese furry spirits was possessing Hinako prior, in this case the Tsukumogami, but it could have just been the spirit itself and we would have achieved the same outcome. So choosing Shu as the one possessed by the spirit feels deliberate. What follows might be one of the worst scenes ever put into a video game, wherein Shu finally gives in and realizes that it's time for Hinako to grow up and submit to her husband, the one who basically kidnapped her, or the one that groomed her, or the one that coerced her into maiming herself, or the one that was destined to marry her, stripping them both of their autonomy. Again, obfuscation. And then one of the worst exchanges between what I can generously refer to as characters that I have ever fucking seen. And I'm just gonna let this scene play out, because you've probably played the game 2 or 3 more times since then to get the full story. You might have forgotten.
Kotoyuki, I'm counting on you to look after my partner for a while. It will be for more than a while, I assure you. If you ever make my Hinako unhappy, I'll beat you to a pulp. Hinako belongs to me. She is no longer yours. No way. She's my partner, so she's always mine. I'm just lending her to you. As I see it, you and I are the only two in this world who truly understand Hinako. Perhaps we could become friends.
Your eyes and ears do not deceive you. After playing a game explicitly about the objectification of women in this society and time period, centered around a teenage girl who has been staring down the barrel of a literal shotgun wedding over which she has no control, the two men vying for her affection literally discuss ownership of her, and finally agree to disagree over a fucking fist bump. This is a Silent Hill game, by the way. Just so we're all on the same page here. And while all of this is happening, furry Hinako has the audacity to pipe up and say,
"Stop treating me like an object."
First of all, the only thing standing in the way of this nonsense was Hinako's inner child, who we literally saw die at the hands of furry senpai. So furry Hinako should have literally no issue with being objectified whatsoever, especially by the one who made her cut her own arm off, had her face removed, and branded her. And she allowed all of that to happen while her inner child was still alive and an entirely separate spirit was trying to guide her away from furry senpai. So having any objection to being treated this way after all those pesky feminist obstacles have been removed is fucking preposterous. This is considered the bad ending, by the way. Do you guys remember the bad endings of Silent Hill 1? The ones where everyone died? What about the bad endings of Silent Hill 2? You know, the ones where everyone died? What about the bad ending in Downpour? You know, the one where everyone died? Well, actually, not everyone has to die for an ending to be bad. There's a lot more nuance in the endings of Silent Hill F that you just don't understand. Ending number 2 then concludes with an incredibly uncomfortable consummation of the marriage, complete with a non-consensual voiceover and a trail of blood left behind by the newlywed couple.
No. I'm scared. I'm so scared. Please, no. I'm scared. I'm scared. I don't want to be like my mother. I don't want to become my mother.
Aren't video games fun? Now, I could just show you a picture of the writer and call it a day. That's about the content creator equivalent of a fucking Uno reverse card. But we still have 2 other endings to get through, and I have to be the adult and go on yet another tirade about the mishandling of sensitive subject matter. The combination of sex and violence should always be handled with care and subtlety. There are very few examples where an extreme approach to depicting sex and violence has the desired effect on the audience. But when it comes to video games especially, an interactive medium, there is a drastic point of diminishing returns for the subconscious impact on the audience. I am 100% on board for artists pushing boundaries, but the harder you push, the stronger your execution needs to be. Subtlety is your best friend. This game has none. In fact, I don't remember the last time I played a game that was this overt, and all I play are fucking horror games. Silent Hill F doesn't leave anything to the imagination. Imagine for a second you're playing Silent Hill 2, and at the beginning of the abstract daddy boss fight, a little objective pops up in the corner that says, defeat Angela's father. And partway through the fight, you hear James say something like, Jesus, Angela, your dad's a real piece of work. That is the level of interdimensional cringe that we are talking about here. If Ending 2 was a victory for furry Hinako and considered the bad ending, then Ending 3 would be a victory for Hinako's inner child and probably considered by most to be the good ending. This ending shows Kotoyuki, aka Furry Senpai, take on the form of the Red Wolf of Radagon and attack Hinako. Look away, kitten! Daddy doesn't want to be seen like this! After transforming, he admits that he waited until Hinako was of legal age to marry her because he just loved and respected her so much.
Out of love and respect for you, I force myself to abide by the rules of human courtship.
Fucking gross. After he does his comical bad guy groomer furry monologue and gets easily defeated by a teenager with a steel pipe, the two share an exchange that almost beats the fist bump ending.
In spite of everything, I won't forget your kindness. In spite of everything, I won't forget your kindness. In spite of everything, I won't forget your kindness. I won't forget your kindness. I won't forget your kindness.
This is your 9 out of 10? This merits a very positive on Steam?
I do think the story is a stroke of genius.
Fuck off. Ending 3 concludes with an implication that Hinako and Shu ran out of her actual real-world wedding from Ending 1 in their wedding attire, even though the game is still depicting them as teenagers. Again, obfuscation. This is followed by what seems to be a moment based in the real world about the geyser activity in the town reaching a critical level. Most likely caused by whichever Japanese furry spirit wasn't happy with Hinako leaving Kotoyuki. Most likely the Tsukumogami, or the poisonous water dragon born from the severed head of an 8-headed dragon spirit called the Yamata no Orochi. Remember when Silent Hill was just about a cult trying to resurrect their god? Remember when Silent Hill was just about a man dealing with his grief? Konami, if you were going to reach into the deepest bowels of Japanese hell and pull out all the stops for a revival of a franchise that totally should have stayed buried, can you at the very least hire some better writers and some better goddamn developers? Imagine the content of this game in the hands of someone like Rose Engine, or From Software, or someone like Corey Davis of Eyes Out, you know, the creative director of the second best Silent Hill game ever made. I know that none of this would ever happen because Konami is on a budget, but it feels good to dream. Ending 4, aka the true ending, aka the developer-sanctioned canon ending, aka the ending you can't get to without playing through this unbearable pile of shit 4 fucking times, is the ending that tries to tie everything up in a nice little bow and give Hinako as her whole, true self a happy ending. So the real Hinako realizes that everything that's happened in the game has been orchestrated by 2 separate gods, vying for influence over Ebisugaoka, Hinako herself, and Kotoyuki, aka Furry Senpai. At first I thought this was a possible hint that her parents were both actually good people, but the memories of her father being abusive, which stemmed from the debt and lack of success in pursuing his career, and her mother being a passive, complicit dick, were all completely fabricated by the Tsukumogami spirit possessing her doll to help push Hinako down this path. But there is explicit lore in New Game Plus that contradicts this. Fuck me for speculating, right?
If it's not in the journal, you shouldn't even bring it up.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so stupid. I'm stupid. I'm so stupid. The Tsukumogami within the doll and the fox god of the Inari clan have been entangled in a conflict at the center of Ebisugaoka throughout history. The Tsukumogami wants Hinako to break away from Furry Senpai to strip the fox god of the power acquired through the divine marriage ritual, even if it costs her her sanity. Neither of these entities are benevolent, but I would take the town being destroyed by volcanic activity as per the Tsukumogami ending, as opposed to people sacrificing their autonomy and allowing for the divine marriage ritual to continue. One more time, with feeling.
In spite of everything, I won't forget your kindness.
You just keep hitting those fucking home runs, Konami! After realizing what's actually going on in Ebisugaoka following in the footsteps of Heather and Alessa, both Hinakos have a hug/choke/kaiju battle, followed by the final exposition dump to tie up all the loose ends of the story.
Once in a blue moon, humankind produces an extraordinary girl who is blessed with divine power. Upon her birth, a spell is placed on our clan's successor that stirs within him a desperate desire to go and seek out that extraordinary girl and make her his wife.
In the past,
We relied on our cunning, seducing our brides with clever deceits. But this generation's heir,
Failing to charm his bride-to-be demonstrates what an inexperienced failure he is.
Kotayuki, no. He just... all he wanted was for us to get married and be happy together. He tried so hard. He was alone. All that time. Don't laugh!
I have a serious question. Is this fucking fetish material? Who wrote this? Oh. Here's the thing. This story is not difficult to understand whatsoever. I have barely scratched the surface at just how poorly handled the themes are in this piece of shit. I'm just recapping the endings to provide context for the rest of the discussion, but these endings, even in isolation, are so problematic that with the context of the full narrative and all the corroboration or conflicting information across each playthrough, it just gets worse. I've seen so many content creators, streamers, and others online outright dismissing criticism of this story as being disingenuous, misogynist, anti-woke, right-leaning, you're just mad it's not like the other Silent Hill games, or you clearly didn't understand the story. But here is where I stand. I think that the themes in Silent Hill F deserve so much more reverence, respect, and comprehension than Neobards and Ryukishio 7 especially are capable of delivering. I don't think much has changed since 1960. I don't just feel or think, I know that not even most, but all women spend their lives dealing with the struggles highlighted in this game in some form or another. And I think they deserve a better game and a better story. It's that simple. I'm not coming from bad faith, I'm not a misogynist, I don't give a shit who makes the games as long as they're good, and there's no way to misunderstand this story because the developers tell you everything you need to know whether you like it or not. Silent Hill F leaves no room for interpretation. No clever storytelling, no compelling characterization, no mystery, no subtlety whatsoever. It's a handful of incredibly poignant, timeless, meaningful themes wasted on a poorly conceived and terribly executed story, accompanied by terrible gameplay, packaged within a corporate product designed to sell you fucking skateboards and wait, is that a fucking Silent Hill 2 pillow?
Don't laugh!
Every single creator who was tapped for the revival of this franchise were chosen for budgetary reasons and budgetary reasons only. Indie developer, no-name developer with low-budget ideas desperate for a paycheck. Indie developer who are good at poorly ripping off other more talented developers. Indie developer, small-time filmmaker and production company responsible for low-budget slop. And literal budget work for hire. This isn't about art, no matter how much you want to believe it. Back to the true ending. After the exposition dump to end all exposition dumps, both versions of Hinako have to fight each respective god simultaneously in what I can only describe as, what if Kingdom Hearts was made for 16-year-olds instead of 6-year-olds? Then, after defeating both gods, somehow, both versions of Hinako decide to reconcile their differences, even though they both still have separate goals, one of which being still trying to have a relationship with... what the fuck is his name? Dostoevsky? No, Kotoyuki, the furry groomer from the first playthrough who is actually not a groomer but a victim himself depending on the ending you get. Again, obfuscation. So Silent Hill F, depending on the playthrough and ending you get, completely shifts in terms of who is who and what means what. But there's actually one moment in the game that highlights the intentions of the writer in a way that makes me believe that in the hands of the right developers, this game could have been something truly great. Halfway through the game, there is a section in the Dark Shrine where Hinako has to kill her friends in order to grow up and move on with her life. These gameplay sections are separated by extended scenes of graphic violence, wherein Hinako is mutilated as part of the divine marriage ritual. She slowly saws her own arm off and has it replaced with a fox arm, symbolizing giving her hand in marriage, has her face removed and replaced with the fox mask, meant to represent her relinquishing her mind or submitting to her husband, and completes the ritual by receiving a brand, forever marking her as the property of her future husband. As a representation of what women in this time period, and even across the world today, feel when they lose their autonomy in some way, whether due to marriage, childbirth, or some other factor, this is a brilliant sequence of events. And if the rest of the game deployed even a fraction of the subtlety present in the games that popularized this franchise, this could easily be one of the greatest and most poignant moments in video game history. Unfortunately, the very heavy-handed and graphic maiming of the teenage girl is followed by this. So what these developers and this writer have done is communicated the exact opposite message I believe they were going for. And that message is,
oh wow, mutilating myself to fit into this male-dominated patriarchal hellscape actually made me even stronger. Patriarchy is power!
So all of the graphic violence, again enacted on the teenage girl and her friends, is literally pointless. But there are people who will defend it because you're just mad it's not like the older games. And you know what? Yeah. Kind of. When the first game came out back in 1999, it was almost a subversion of so many of the popular horror tropes of the time. Instead of being overt or graphically violent, it was incredibly understated and meticulously constructed with subtlety in mind at every turn. Gore and other graphic elements were used quite sparingly, if at all, to emphasize or punctuate a specific moment. But one of the benefits of the passage of time is that people can completely overlook the foundations of the series and prop up moments that are just flat out antithetical to what made the series work.
All I know from Silent Hill is that there was a movie and someone got their whole entire skin ripped off by Pyramid Head, and also there's a Pyramid Head. That's what I know.
Or corporate mandated lore updates that serve no other function than to render all canon completely obsolete.
Silent Hill F is not a true Silent Hill game because it takes place in Japan. For those of you who are saying that, have you not played the hit classic Silent Hill: The Short Message? They say that there is something on this planet called the Silent Hill phenomena. And what happens is, in great places, when there is high stress, basically, Silent Hill can happen. Thus, being called the Silent Hill phenomena. Basically, they retconned Silent Hill as a place, and now it can be anywhere.
Eat shit.
This isn't about whether or not I think something is or isn't a Silent Hill game. Silent Hill 2 is my favorite game in the franchise and quite possibly my favorite game of all time, and that game doesn't require any prior experience with the series lore or canon to have the desired impact on players. My second favorite Silent Hill game is Spec Ops: The Line, and that's not even a real Silent Hill game, but y'all aren't ready for that conversation yet. If Silent Hill F was good, we wouldn't even be having a discussion about the validity or significance of the overall canon. But the simple fact is, if the execution of gameplay is bad, but the story adds to the canon and legacy of the franchise in a meaningful way, then calling it Silent Hill might make sense. But if you're going to ignore canon, then the themes and narrative have to be executed with the same philosophy as those original games, which this game simply does not. Silent Hill F is the most overt, graphic, and violent game in the series, regardless of intention, to its absolute detriment. There's no subtlety, no personal interpretation, nothing left to the imagination. It's literally the anti-Silent Hill. Silent Hill F is a game designed from the ground up to be played multiple times to experience the full story. However, the developers didn't once stop and ask themselves if their game was even good enough to justify all that time investment. It reminds me of a movie designed from the ground up to be the beginning of a cinematic universe, setting up various characters and plot threads without the filmmakers really stopping to ask themselves if they had even made a good movie in the first place. Here's one of the biggest issues I have with Silent Hill F, neobards, and the internet fanbase trying to gaslight people into thinking they have to play the game 4 times to get the full story. Outside of new notes and lore that exist for no other reason than to artificially inflate total played time, exclusive to New Game Plus, each of these endings are mutually exclusive. The idea that you need to play the game more than once to get the full story is just a straight up lie. Ending 1 is all in the protagonist's mind, i.e. it was all a dream. Ending 2 is what happens if the protagonist loses to herself. Ending 3 is what happens if the protagonist loses to herself, but furry. Ending 4 is what happens if the bad guys lose to the protagonist. And any possible meaning you could take from it is undermined by specific story and gameplay elements or rendered completely pointless by the all-knowing journal. Silent Hill 1 only has a canon ending in hindsight. On release, any of the endings could be considered canon. Silent Hill 2 has 4 separate endings, all of which can be canon depending on how you play the game, or more importantly, your point of view. How you feel about James's actions will undoubtedly canonize one of the endings for you. The original games were replayable because they were incredibly short by modern standards, and there was so much mystery to uncover for yourself that you would naturally discover the additional endings through sheer curiosity, not because the fucking developers told you to. In Silent Hill F, after beating the game once, the developer-mandated ending checklist shows up in the menu to let you know you got a long road ahead of you if you want to get the most out of this horribly written story that mishandles its sensitive subject matter to such a degree that it becomes a potential danger to those who play it. What people mean when they say you need to beat Silent Hill F 4 separate times is that in order to unlock the true ending, the ending deemed canon statement by the developers, you need to play the game 4 times, because the true ending is straight up locked behind the first 3 endings, when the correct design choice would be beating the game once and then all endings become available as long as the right conditions are met. Locking anything behind such a long, tedious video game is sadistic as it is, when they could have just had the one and only canon ending be the ending you get on the first playthrough, and have a more focused, concise narrative. This is the literal definition of padding, and I am baffled at the amount of people who are defending this shit. All of this is enough to make Silent Hill F the worst game in the series, the worst title in the franchise, but the gameplay takes it to a whole other level of bad. However, we will be discussing that in the next episode. I know this one's a little bit shorter, the last one was 2 hours long. I'm doing things a little bit differently this time around. I'm experimenting, I'm learning, I'm still figuring this content creator thing out. I have a feeling that not only am I in the minority here, I might just straight up be the minority on this one. I have a very extreme view of this game compared to what I've seen online, but I stand by everything that I said, and like I said, in the next video we'll talk about the gameplay. It only gets worse. But thank you guys again for watching. Please follow me over on Twitch, where we streamed this and games like this every week. Follow me on social media as well. I promise I'm going to work on posting more stuff. We're working on some YouTube shorts, I'm working on scripts for other videos, and again, we have more episodes of Silent Hill F coming soon. Thank you so much for watching. I still have no idea how to end my videos. I have no idea.
I do think the story is a stroke of genius.
Eat shit.